What is this? Write reports and maintain proper documentation of info such as client Medicaid or billing records. Okay, someone is breaking the law with this one. Anthropic report. The Anthropic Economic Index. So basically what they put out is, it's basically a report on how people are using AI across different industries for different tasks, things like that. They also open source the data set. It's more like the aggregates, not the individuals. So it's not super useful, but maybe there's some interesting stuff there. People can probably use it to extend, so that's fair. I thought this was interesting, which is AI use is more prevalent for tasks that are associated with mid to high wage occupations. So for low and high paid roles, AI usage is lower. It's like mid to high is where it like spikes. So here is where they're talking about it makes sense to focus on occupational tasks rather than the occupations themselves. Jobs can share certain tasks and skills. For example, visual pattern recognition is a task performed by designers, photographers, security screeners, and radiologists. So that makes sense when you kind of break down like what we're trying to do. So this is how it works. Let me make sure you can see the whole thing here. So basically, conversations happen at the top here. When the conversations happen, it's all private. The user's asking, like, my game's crashing, I only have 8 gigs of RAM, how can I fix this? So then that turns into like a task. Which is modify software to improve performance and adapt to new hardware. So it like categorizes it. I guess it's almost like an embedding in some ways you could think of it. So it matches it to one of these like task categories. That then gets matched to different occupations. So like modifying software is computer, mathematical. And then they also break it down into like, is this augmenting or completely automating the task? That's where I'm not sure how they could realistically say it's automating versus augmenting. I guess they're probably trying to say something like, if Claude is able to give you the script to run, I guess that'd be automating it. Since Claude can't really use tools that well yet, if you have, like for the first example, my game keeps crashing because I have 8 gigs of RAM, I'm not sure how Claude's even capable of automating versus augmenting that. And so I feel like, what's the percentage? I think they get into it later maybe, but the percentage of what they say is totally automated seems really high to me. So I'm not totally bought in on that, but I think this is a good approach regardless. This was an interesting chart. So they talk about the AI usage by job type. So what we're looking at here, they took the percentage of conversations on Claude and like dispersed them across the different job types. And then they compared that to the percentage of that job type in the workforce. So here you can see 3.4% of the workforce is computer and mathematical, technically, or like the tasks, I guess, categorized under job type of that. But it had a 37.2% usage on Claude and the 0.3 to 9.1 for transportation. I thought that was really interesting too. I think, is it the lowest? It's definitely close. It's not the lowest, I guess. I think it has the biggest gap. Yeah, it does, I think, right? 0.3 to 9.1. I mean, I didn't think it was going to be high by any means, but it is actually the worst, which did surprise me a little bit. I'm pretty sure that the distribution we see here is probably roughly the same as like Claude's ability to actually solve problems in that space. I'm not sure like how much you can truly read into like transportation and managed material, right? Like how much of this is Claude's not capable of doing it versus how much is people want it. So then they get into automation. So this is where I'm not totally on the same page, I guess. AI was not being used to replace people doing tasks, but instead worked with them, engaging in tasks like validation, learning, helping the user acquire new knowledge and skills. I could be asking AI to, for example, write code for me, and I don't think that's an automation. Like if I say, hey, I have a file, I've got a bug I can't figure out, that's an augmentation to me. That's not an automation. Because I still have to have written the code, identified the problem, asked the question, and then implement the fix. AI just kind of helped me along the way to like what I'm actually doing. It didn't do it for me. I guess by their categorization here, they would say that's an automation of a task because the AI wrote the code to fix it. Even if I had to go back and forth 3 or 4 times, that's an automation. Which I guess that would explain why if you look at their chart, this automation number is crazy. There's no way. It's not that high. We are not at over 40% automation of tasks that happen in Claude. I'd like to see the breakdown on tasks on what is being automated versus augmented. Yeah, I wonder if we can pull that, actually. We'll look at the data set here in a second, and we'll see if it's in there. So caveats, we don't know how the users were using their responses. Were they copy pasting code snippets? Were they fact checking responses? and accepting them uncritically. Some of what appears in our data to be automation could in fact be augmentation. Okay, I'm glad they called that out because I think that is important. We only analyze data from Claude free and pro plans, so no API team or enterprise users. See, that is interesting. This is probably the transportation disconnect that we were just showing, right? Like, I was really shocked at the low percentage of usage related to freight. People are definitely using it for freight related things. Like, Claude is very good, but I think most of the logistics uses that we see today are definitely API. I don't think people are going into Claude to ask specifics around running freight. People are using other tools that are on the market to do that. Even like Load Partner, right? Like our Lasso, Dart products, being able to automate calls and things like that. That was all API, so it wouldn't show up in this report, but it would be very clear that it's logistics related. All this data, it's really a bummer that there's no API data in here. That's what I want to know. So yeah, so here's the open data we can take a look at. So this is the task name and then percentage that it showed up. These get pretty small actually. Like, advise retail customers or internal users on the appropriateness of parts, supplies, and materials requested. Let's see, logistics. Analyze all aspects of corporate logistics to determine most cost-effective or efficient means of transporting products or supplies. Actually, 0.01, is that a percentage? Is that low for these? Yeah, it's pretty low. So there might be some interesting stuff that we can pull out of this about like what people are asking about from AI regarding logistics. Apply logistics modeling techniques to address issues such as operational process improvements or facility design. That's really specific. Facility design? That feels like a really specific task to be mentioned. Facility design or layout. And that's somehow grouped with logistics modeling techniques to address operational improvements. So somebody was building like a new facility, a new warehouse, and was asking Claude. Yeah, I think that's an intel leak for sure. Let's get this into something so we can look at it better. Okay, so here's all the logistics ones. This is like rank out of 3515. We'll post it to Twitter. People might find it interesting. We saw a lot of what? So we saw like a lot of people at figuring out how to like ship things, and a lot of people figuring out how to find people trying to ship things. I hope they keep doing stuff like that. It's a good insight. It's perfect, right? Here's the things that people are going to Claude's chat to manually do that you could build a UI for it.